So today we are going to look at the chart of one of the biggest spiritual teachers in India, one of the most biggest youth influencers of India, Sadhguru Jaggi Vasudev. And I want to do a short analysis because I can speak about charts for hours together, but I found that it's interesting to see some of the correlations between his chart and what's actually happening in his life. So let's dive into it directly. So when I look at Sadhguru Jaggi Vasudev's chart, we are looking at a chart where there's a lot of prominence of the fourth house in the sign of Leo. And fourth house is having 3+ planets, three of the Navgrahas, Sun, Mars, Mercury, and also Pluto. So fourth house is the sign for hospitality, it's the sign for comfort, luxury, it's also the sign for nurturing, nourishing, and management. Whereas Leo is the sign, the zodiac sign for leadership. So we all know that Sadhguru is a great leader. He's a great, he can mobilize people for this cause of spirituality, for this creating this beautiful world that's based on a lifestyle, yogic lifestyle. And we also see that there are two planets, Jupiter, Venus in the fifth house, but also the Mercury is on the sort of the border, on the cusp of the fourth and the fifth house. So we also see a Mercury influence to the fifth house. Now, fifth house we know is the house for glamour, it's the house for entertainment, it's the house for the pleasures of life. And one of the interesting things that astrologer Christine Rodriguez pointed out in one of her videos, which I mention here, is also that the dharma houses and the moksha houses in this chart are connected together. For example, the eighth house is a dharma house, and the eighth house is a moksha house, and it is connected to the fifth house. The lord of this house is sitting here. So we can see that all the dharma houses, and so dharma and moksha is connected. Of course, when you study astrology or when you go deep into it, we will be able to look at this aspect deeply. Now, let's move on and let's see that we also see that in Sadhguru Jaggi Vasudev's ashram, it's very luxurious. When I went there, I found it to be very beautiful, very luxurious. It's very well organized. It has good hygiene. And all of that comes from the fourth house, Leo, that I mentioned. I mentioned that he's a good administrator, good leader, and very good hospitality manager. So it's an amazing facility for those of you who would want to go and meditate in a more, luxurious and clean and hygienic environment. Of course, I'm not trying to promote anything over here, and I'm not part of this organization at all, but I'm just looking at it from the astrology perspective, so that we know, that the stuff that we talk in astrology is making sense in real life. Okay, so now let's go to the next, and we see that it's a beautiful place. It's luxurious, it's nice, it's wonderful. In that sense, it's really aesthetic also, because we see Venus progressing to the sixth house. Sixth house is for service and Venus is for glamour, aesthetics. So we see Venus in sixth house, Libra, its own sign. And that brings this aesthetic touch to this Isha Yoga Foundation ashram. Now, let's go to also more, let's have a better look. We see that Sadhguru is also interested in golf, which is a game which is considered somewhat a luxurious game. Then we know that again, as I mentioned, that Sadhguru Jaggi Vasudev he loves his motorcycles, he loves his cars, and vehicles is something that's indicated by the fourth house again, fourth house. And fourth house, because it's the house for luxury. And also his fifth house is strong, so that also brings the pleasure that he can gain from that luxury. Now, let's So we see him with different motorcycles. He really likes the best of motorcycles, some of which most people in India would not be able to afford, would not be able to buy. But Sadhguru, through his efforts, through his work, has been able to uh, have these motorcycles and enjoy them. And also, it's one of his style statement. Uh, it also shows about his vigor, his vitality, his zest for life. We also look at the cars that Sadhguru owns, and he, as this is just a Google screenshot, which shows that he owns the Mercedes Benz. I don't know if he earns it, but he has used this Mercedes Benz car, and I'm sure he's used similar cars in the past. And we can see that he's seen with many wonderful cars. So he's a real avid car lover, motorcycle lover. So vehicles, the love for vehicles comes from that prominent fourth house, which we see in his natal chart, which we see in his birth chart. Now, we see that there is a Taurus ascendant in Sadhguru's chart. Taurus indicated by number 2. And I can show you that this Taurus number 2 is disposited to the fifth house. Venus rules Taurus. And Taurus is the sign for earthy pleasures. Taurus is the sign for food. It's the sign for clothing. It's the sign for having shelter. So it's really a very earthy sign. And where is this earthiness? Where is this love for food expressed? It goes to the fifth house. So the fifth house means that the person will like pleasurable, tasty food, well presented food. It's not only good taste, but also good presentation of food. Also, we see that Venus is in the sign of Virgo, which is the sign for health, which is the sign for healing. So he presents very delicious food, but in a sattvic manner. And this is what my friends who are at the Isha Yoga Foundation have also told me, that it's good food, but very aesthetic, very good to look at. And at the same time, when I went to Isha Yoga, I managed to eat at some of the places and it was really good food. So this love for food also comes from the Taurus ascendant. And let's also see that we see that Sadhguru also is a good cook. He's written books about cooking, and he also loves to serve his guests who come to his Isha Yoga Center in an aesthetic way, in the Vedic way, or whatever sattvic way you call it. He likes to have a good presentation and at the same time give them the organic, healthy food, which is also well presented, which is tasty, as I mentioned. We also saw that somebody who was a celebrity at the international level, Gordon Ramsay, visited Sadhguru's ashram and had food there. He was amazed at how well and how tasty one could prepare vegetarian food. And we have seen this in his video, which is available on YouTube. Let's now look at the moon chart a little bit. I'll discuss the moon chart a little bit. So when I look at his moon chart, the moon chart is the rotating the birth chart to the moon, making the moon as the ascendant. And what this allows us is to have a deep look into the person's mind. It allows us to have an insight into the person's mind. So when I look at his moon chart, what I can see here is that this is somebody whose moon is in the sign of Sagittarius, number 9. And it's also this, it's disposited to the 10th house, which is the house of leadership, which is the house for fame. And also we see that his moon chart has a very prominent, we can see that there's a very prominent 9th house in the moon chart. 9th from the moon is very prominent. And 9th house we know is the position for karma, it's the position for organized spirituality, it's for traditional spirituality. It's also in the sign of Leo. So he's a leader, as I mentioned. And 9th from the moon indicates that bent of mind, that always that interest in spirituality, always the interest in topics related to karma, destiny. And these are the kind of questions which people ask. And 9th house is a good house to have. It's the house of good house to have it so prominent because it is the house of fortune, it's the house for guidance. So that makes him this guru, that makes him this mystic. And we also see that he is not somebody who is going to compromise on the rules. He likes the structures. And this is what I saw when I went to Isha Yoga Ashram. And 12th house represents ashrams, and he has Saturn in the 12th house, 12 from moon. And that means in his mind, he wants an ashram that's really well organized, where to the point that it may appear that, you know, people are OCD about the rules. So the volunteers will tell you what to do, where to go, how to do things. So it's a very well organized structural management in the ashram. So definitely, and we also see that Ketu is in his 5th house, which again indicates that his connections with people are spiritual, and at the same time he will write, he will give the higher education about spirituality. 9th house is again the higher knowledge. So we can clearly see those indications in his chart. Now let's go to his to some more implications that we can see from this chart. So when we come back to the birth chart, again, as I said, the moon is in the 9th sign, Sagittarius, and it's in the 8th house, the house of death. The moon is in the house of death for Sadhguru Jaggi Vasudev. So the moon is placed here in the 8th house, which is the house of death. And it's in the 9th sign, which is Sagittarius, which is about spirituality, karma, spiritual goals, and so on. And these are the topics about which he writes books. He writes entire books. He just doesn't write articles. And to write entire books, the connection with the 5th house is important. The connection is, again, as I mentioned in the earlier, that Christine Rodriguez has mentioned that the dharma houses and moksha houses are connected. So in this way, his moksha, his inner quotient for the mystical, for the esoteric, is expressed in the writings, in the books that he writes. And so he's written a book about death. He's written lots of books about esoteric stuff, mystical stuff, yogic stuff, which is deep esoteric knowledge. Okay, so now we'll also see that he has written, he speaks a lot about mystical topics. So we can see here that Kajal Agarwal, who's a famous Bollywood Indian actress, she has asked him about reincarnation. So reincarnation is about death and birth. So it's an 8th house topic. And Kajal comes from the film fraternity, which is the entertainment fraternity. So that is the 5th house. You know, entertainment, pleasure. So he is bringing the mystical aspect of life in a pleasurable, in an entertaining way, in a way which is presentable, in a way which is aesthetic. And that is why this connection with the influencers, with the actresses, with the celebrities makes it juicy, makes it interesting for young people, for everyone actually in India. So again, as I mentioned, to you in something which I've not mentioned so far is about Saturn. And Saturn is one of the important planets. And we can see that Saturn in Sadhguru's chart is placed in, Saturn in Sadhguru's chart is placed in, it's placed in the 7th house, and it's placed in the 8th sign, Scorpio. So again, sadhana, Saturn is about sadhana, Saturn is about doing the hard work, and it's hard work in the mystical front, on the esoteric front, on the occult front, on the front of mysteries, death and rebirth, all these things. And Sadhguru's symbol, or one of the icons now for Isha Yoga, for his organization, is this Yogeshwara, this black idol of Lord Shiva. This black, I won't call it an idol, it's a statue, it's a big statue, it's a massive statue. Even I have taken pictures with this statue, it's huge. But the distinctive thing about this is that it is very Saturnian, because first of all, the color is black. Black is the color for Saturn. But also it is Saturnian because it represents the Yogeshwara form of Shiva, the form of Shiva as a yogi, as an ascetic, as a somebody who's doing tapascharya in the forest, somebody who's deeply immersed in his spiritual practices. And this is what is highlighted. And that's why you will listen to the mantra in his ashram, which is chanted often, Yoga Yoga Yogeshwara, Kala Kala Kaleshwara, Bhuta Bhuta Bhuteshwara, Shambho Shambho Mahadeva. So you will listen to this mantra often, and this is that dimension. So that is the dimension of sadhana, that is the dimension of spiritual practice, which is being highlighted through this iconic statue, which was inaugurated by the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, and it's also part of the Incredible India tourism campaign. Now we see that we were talking about Modi, and again we are going to compare him with Modi for some reason, and we will see that again. I'll show you the position of Rahu. It's in 6th house in the sign of Libra. So again, Rahu in the 6th house Libra means he decimates his opposition when it comes to debates, when it comes to arguments. There's no chance for anyone to win arguments with someone who has Rahu in the 6th house. It becomes very difficult for someone to win arguments with them. And we have seen this on numerous occasions that Sadhguru has decimated his opposition, which is also the case with Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India, who also has Rahu in the 6th house, which is an interesting comparison. Also, he will see success through healing, through health, through lifestyle, through aesthetics, because 6th house is about health, 6th house is about healing, and Libra, where Rahu is placed, is about lifestyle and aesthetics. Rahu gives material benefits, and he will get his material benefits through these fields of healing, health, lifestyle, aesthetics. Okay, and this is the picture of Sadhguru and his Adi Yogi statue being inaugurated by the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi. We also see this picture of Sadhguru and Narendra Modi. He has gifted him a Adi Yogi shawl. And remember that I mentioned that Sadhguru's ascendant is Taurus. Taurus also represents clothing. And Sadhguru's ashram and his organization makes wonderful handloom clothing. It's really wonderful and aesthetic and beautiful with some of the finest handloom material. So that is also because of the connection of Taurus with the 5th house Venus. So it's another connection of Taurus ascendant that we can see. And both these gentlemen have 6th house Rahu. Very difficult to argue with them or debate with them, because they will always decimate the opposition. They will always win the argument because of Rahu in 6th house. And here you can see the screenshots that I've shared from Google. Sadhguru shuts up Javed Akhtar, Sadhguru shuts up a lady, shuts up students. So everywhere he's decimating his opposition when it comes to debates and arguments. We go on to see shuts up a journalist, shuts up a lady, shuts up Jaggi. Vasudev shuts up Barkatat, a journalist. So he's always, kind of makes his point in a very emphatic fashion, and there's no way you can win an argument there. Sadhguru's chart also, when I look at progressions, a lot of these planets, which you can see here in the 4th house, they start moving to the 5th house as per progression theory, which I use in my readings also. And because of this, the 5th house becomes prominent at this stage of his life. And because of this 5th house prominence, it is something that really gets proven because he has his interactions with millennials, with the young people in the age of 20 to 30. They are his big fans because they see his videos, they see his explanations, which are very witty, very charming, very wonderful, very modern, very scientific in some way, very sensible in some way. They read his books, they watch his videos, and also, so he attracts the youth, and he also attracts the youth icons, the influencers. So he has a series called as Youth and Truth. And fifth house, remember, is the house for youth. It's the house for higher education. It's for the college education, the university education. So he's attracting the youth. He's attracting the people who are uh, in that age group, which is the youth of the country. And that is fifth house, really. And he talks to them about routine life, about how they can manage their life, their lifestyle, which is again Virgo, which if you see, it's Virgo, it's a Virgo thing. And so that's something which we see from his chart. Also, we see from Sadhguru's chart that he is associated with a lot of youth icons, with celebrities from all over the world, and a lot of the politicians, film stars. You see cricketers, you see all kind of celebrities with him, and these are the youth icons. These are the influencers who influence the millennials. So it is a great PR exercise, as I told you, that he's making the mysticism, the esoteric stuff palatable. He's making it digestible for the youth, for the young people. And you know that I already mentioned that Leo is really strong in his chart. So he's a great leader. He's really good at it. He's really got this big personality. And you can see here, this is the Bollywood actress, Kangana Ranawat, very beautiful. She is kind of chatting and interviewing Sadhguru Jaggi Vasudev. She's one among many actresses, actors, celebrities who have interviewed Jaggi Vasudev ji. Okay, now we've seen a lot about his life. We've seen a lot of the correlations with his chart. Let's see a little bit about the future so that you get an idea how I look at the future also. Yeah, age 63 from September, he's going to be age 63. 3rd September is his birthday. Let's wish him happy birthday in advance. And he's going to complete age 63 this year, which is an activation of the 4th house again. And I told you that 4th house is his very strong house. It's a seed house. It's a power center in his chart. And well, because this is activated, it's going to be a big year. It's going to be an intense year. It's going to activate his core strengths. We may see him a lot more in a leadership role this year. Of course, there can be some losses. There can be some conflict situations also, which is, I think, inevitable if someone has such a big mission, such a big organization. We see in his chart that Sun and Saturn are 90 degrees to each other. They are forming a challenge aspect, which is called as a square aspect in Western astrology. So that makes him a sort of activist also at times, and sometimes he can have his share of problem with the authorities, maybe local authorities, maybe governments, and so on. Also, so this also kind of gets intensified this year, but overall it looks to be a very intense, very powerful year for him. I think he's going to come out in flying colors over the next year, September 2020 to September 21. And we wish him all the best for that. But also we see that, yes, that it's going to be a very interesting and good year for him. And of course, we can analyze year after year and so on. But we'll also look at the dashas now. So when I look at his dashas, the time periods, which is something available only in Vedic astrology, to see time periods belonging to a certain year. So we see that he is currently in a Jupiter Mahadasha. So he is the guru, he's expanding his organization, and majority of his expansion has happened in this Jupiter period, which started somewhere, I think, around 2011. And that is the time since the expansion has been happening. But Saturn, as I mentioned here, is going to start from January 2027 as per the 360 Dasha calculation, which I use. And because of that, my friends, you will see that there is a flavor of sadhana. Saturn is sadhana. Saturn is the monk. Saturn is about austerities. So Saturn is not about expansion. So we will see maybe that Sadhguru Jaggi Vasudev in the Saturn period goes deeper into his sadhana, because right now, even he has mentioned in some of his videos that he's constantly globe trotting because his work is expanding. But in 2027, we might start seeing him going inwards, going more into his individual sadhana, maybe spending more time with his students, maybe focusing more on the mystical processes, because Saturn is placed in the sign of Scorpio. Of course, he's not going to stop his work completely. The mystical work is going to go on. He will be in close connection probably with his students, because he sparked a mystical process for all of them on a mass scale. And 2027 is the time when he will probably work with them more intensely, taking them to the deeper levels of expertise in the yogic field. Now, Saturn rules the ninth house, which is the house of the guru. So he's still the guru for the people, for the masses, but he's going to be more strict. He's going to grind his disciples. He's going to be more intensive with the spiritual work, is what I can see. Also, it's the 10th Lord. So again, it will be seen as an organization for hardcore sadhana, and maybe not just a mass spirituality organization after 2027. So the work and the public mission will definitely continue, because Saturn is still in the 7th house, which is the house of public dealing. Okay, and let's see now that we also see that from January 2027, as I said, he may spend more time in isolation. He might boost the sadhana of his disciples, and that is what I mentioned. Activism of some sort can always be there if Saturn is in 7th house. Also, his Saturn in the 7th house, very important, friends, is makes him do this philanthropic work, makes him take up a mission for overall humanity. So always with Saturn in 7th house, you will see that they want to do something. They want to give something for society at some point in their life. And when Saturn gets activated, he's again going to amp up this work. He's going to max this work. He's going to kind of take this up in a big way. So my friends, I've shared with you a lot of insights, which I can see from his chart. And it's very interesting to see that there's so much correlation between his life and and very basic astrology stuff, what I've discussed with you. Actually, it's nothing advanced, but the way we can see it coming together is amazing. We wish Sadhguru Jaggi Vasudev very good luck and the best wishes for his work that he's doing for humanity. And my intention was just to see how astrology works in this case, and how beautifully it explains so many of the things, how it can be a beautiful tool for decision making, choice making, empowerment for all of us, evolution for all of us. All the best, my friends. Thank you for joining. Thank you for watching. Cheers. Thank you.